Well, this morning I'm at Willow Park Wine and Spirits, and we're talking Argentinian wines, specifically Malbecs. It's Malbec World Day, and what is that? I'm with Samantha this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning. How's it going?
Great, and this is really quite cool. Why don't we talk about Malbecs and Malbec World Day and what that is?
Yeah, so Malbec, everyone loves Argentinian Malbec, but it would be a shame not to mention its origins. Malbec originally comes from France in this tiny region called Cahors, kind of near the Pyrenees, and was actually originally known as Cot. It made its way, funnily enough, over to Argentina in the 19th century, and it really does quite well in the Argentinian terroir because it has this this warmth that you need to develop this ripe black grape to get these juicy notes that we love.
Okay, and so is that probably one of the main wines that's produced in Argentina then?
Absolutely. So you're looking at about 40% of all your black grapes from Argentina are the Malbec grape, and 22% of your wine produced is from Malbec overall. So I think that's a big number just for one grape.
For sure, and they're very proud of their Malbecs. Why don't we showcase a few here?
Yeah, so over here we would have the Alamos. This is your everyday end of the night kind of barbecue wine. Pair it with something like a barbecued saucy ribs. And most people are familiar here with the 1884. This is from the Mendoza region, carefully selected grapes and a little bit of thyme and oak. It really has this really nice savory touch to it. And honestly, I love this one just for the picture on the bottle.
It's amazing, the label on that for sure.
Right, but the juice in it is quite well, and it really pairs well with like that dark chocolate. So if you're thinking Easter coming up, a little bit for them from the bunny, with the bunny, it works perfect.
Perfect, easy way to remember it. So we're gonna be talking Malbecs throughout the morning, the wines of Argentina, down at Willow Park Wines and Spirits. I'm down at Willow Park Wine and Spirits, and we've been talking about Malbecs, wines of Argentina, and we're going to continue with that, and what makes them special is where they are grown. I'm joined by Samantha, and we're going to be talking about altitude.
Absolutely. So we mentioned that Argentina is a little warm of a country for overall that can develop the Malbec grape properly, but what winemakers and viticulturists can play around with in Argentina is that altitude. So you have kind of the valley floor quite hot, and then I'm sure everyone's been to the top of the mountain or has known about it. It gets quite chilly up there, right? So what winemakers do is they play with that altitude. You can have valley floor fruit that's quite warm, and then as you go higher up into the Andes Mountains, it's a little bit cooler at night, and it helps lock in that acidity. It gives that grape a little bit of rest.
Okay, so the grapes will vary then depending on where they're grown in the different altitudes. Do you have some examples here and how that works?
Absolutely. So there's a couple of different fun examples here. The Don David, this is a really fun wine because it's grown up in the region of Salta, which is in the very north of Argentina, and you'd think north would be closer to the equator, being quite warmer. And not the case here. There's actually vineyards that are planted at about 11,000 feet.
Wow.
Yeah, in elevation. So you're getting this really nice diurnal range that locks in some refreshing acidity and keeps the wine in a reasonable balance.
Okay.
And then you're on to the Trevento Golden Reserve Malbec. This is kind of like a hidden gem. It's got this really beautiful oak note to it, and this is from Mendoza. Most people are familiar with Mendoza Malbec, but the Uco Valley is a little bit, again, higher elevation, looking at about 3,900 feet. So getting some juicy fruits, but also locking in that savory aspect. And then lastly here, this is the Malbec from Trapiche, just listed as Mendoza. The label will tell you a lot, because if it just says Mendoza, it means they can source from anywhere in Mendoza. So they're picking different vineyard plots. Again, that thing I was mentioning, a little bit warmer, a little bit cooler, making a complex wine out of that.
Perfect. Well, that's really cool to know. And so there is some difference between the different Malbecs and the grapes and where they are grown. Next, we're going to talk about the families who have been growing the Malbecs wine varieties for years and centuries, I would almost say. I'm at Willow Park Wine and Spirits, and we've been talking about Malbecs, wines of Argentina, and it's Malbec World Day, and that means celebrating the wines from different areas of Argentina at different altitudes, and also celebrating the families. Samantha's joining us this morning, and a lot of original families making these wines.
Absolutely. Like, we need to give a shout out to some of the original families that really made Argentinian wine what they are today. So we have two wines from two of the families here in front of us. So the Zuccardi Q was actually started by Jose Zuccardi's father in 1963. Jose took it over in 1974, and his son Sebastian is now running the show throughout this, and they're really trying trying to show what the Valle de Uco in Mendoza is all about and showing the different terroirs from that area. So fantastic little wines. Their Malbec's quite great, and I love their Cabernet.
And so they've been doing it for generations, which is really cool. And then this next family, also one of the first wine families of Argentina.
Absolutely. I love the Catina family. So over 100 years of development and over 4 generations. Dr. Laura Catina is currently running the show for the Catina group. But what they did originally was they kind of took the risk and they took the vines that were on the valley floor, and one of the first people to kind of experiment with that elevation and that altitude that we were talking about. So they planted vines up into the higher mountains and made a wine that was really well known for the world and kind of put Argentinian on the map.
Wow. Okay. And if people are interested in some of these Malbecs, they can always come into the store.
Absolutely. We have a great selection of wines from Argentina, Malbecs, everything you can name it, and some really great staff that can help you out.
Perfect. For more information, you can always go to the website at the bottom of our screen. When we come back, we're going to talk about international investment into the wines of Argentina. Well, I've been at Willow Park Wine and Spirits throughout the morning. We've been talking about wines of Argentina, Malbec World Day, a big focus this morning, and a lot of interest, especially internationally, with the wines of Argentina and Argentina itself.
Absolutely. So we're interested in drinking it as a consumer, but there's wineries and winemakers across the world that are interested in planting their own vines in this unique terroir and making their own style of wine. So you have places like France and North America that are growing their own wines and making these beautiful bottles that we have a couple in front of us here.
Okay.
The Trazas de los Andes is from the Moet and Hennessy family, and they're quite big, right?
That's a big name for sure.
And when you get that, you also get the top edge technology. They're not going to cut corners, and they're going to end up with a really great product that is an international investment, but also has this Argentinian terroir and flavor to it.
Okay.
And then I really love this one. It's for those in the know, such a hidden gem, the Clos de la Sette. It was founded and made by 7 families from Bordeaux, France. And so it has this kind of French style of Malbec to it. There's about 4 of those families still producing and adding their grapes into it as well. I think it's fun to remember because it has this star on it in the front, and it has for the 7 points for the 7 families. And it's also made from 7 grapes, with Malbec being the most predominant.
Wow, okay. And Argentina is a very big producer, aren't
Absolutely.
they?
Yeah, so they're the 5th largest producer in the world in terms of volume.
Wow, and let's talk about Buenos Aires.
Oh yes, it's a fun fact. Buenos Aires is actually the 2nd largest consumption per capita of wine.
Wow.
So they like their vino too.
Okay, and if people have more questions about Malbecs or wines of Argentina, they can always come in. There's a lot of experts here at Willow Park Wines and Spirits.
Yeah, or just go to willowparkwines.com and we'll be happy to help you online as well.
Perfect. And yeah, come on down to the store, check out the new store here in Southwest Edmonton, and learn more about the Malbec wines.